This is Yu Cheng, a handsome guy who is 6'10", but still single. He's criticized for being too short to play for the high jump team. When he went to college, he also worked hard and stuck to his beautiful coach, Luo Na. He was determined to get the woman, and he gave her all his gold medals. No one could resist a handsome, tall, energetic guy like Yu Cheng, so Luo Na was moved and jumped into the pool of love with him. And the story began after the morning competition of the 3rd Hunan High School Sports Festival. The sun was scorching hot, and Qi Lin, the director of physical education at Hunan University, came to the 3rd high school to select talented athletes. Luo Na was an assistant coach at Hunan University, and also a graduate of Hunan University of Education. This was the first time she met Yu Cheng, a student at this high school. During lunchtime, the guy jumped up and caught a badminton shuttlecock flying in the air. Luo Na thought he had a refined ankle shape. His legs were both slender and strong, looking like a high jumper. Then, during the afternoon competition, Luo Na saw him compete in a 100-meter race. So she looked at Yu Cheng a few more times and realized that he was the first athlete to cross the finish line in the 100-meter race. Seeing Yu Cheng in the arena shining like the sun, Luo Na remembered someone who had said similar words. Qi Lin clearly noticed Yu Cheng as well, but when he saw the guy's height was only 6'2", not suitable for the high jump, he shifted his attention to Lu Shan. Lu Shan was 6'3", tall and had participated in competitions for junior high and high school students in the city. So Lu Shan became the center of attention during Qi Lin's visit. In the next high jump competition, Luo Na observed that Yu Cheng had imitated the running style and technical movements of the high jump genius named Holm from Switzerland. After successfully jumping, Luo Na secretly mentioned Holm's name and reminded Yu Cheng that his last 4 steps were too slow. Holm was a prodigy who won the gold medal in high jump at the 2004 Athens Olympics. And most importantly, he was only 5'11". Yu Cheng was surprised that someone knew about Holm. In the next jump, he adjusted according to Luo Na's reminder, and everything was fine. Luo Na looked at him optimistically, but Qi Lin still didn't like the boy because he was too short. Then the competition continued. The high jump levels gradually increased, and Yu Cheng failed to jump over twice in a row. But a sudden miracle happened. On his 3rd jump, he cleared that bar. The scene was filled with cheers and applause. Qi Lin didn't want to continue searching, because he still preferred Lu Shan for his height advantage. He then whispered to the high school teacher to do ideological work on Lu Shan, so that the kid could change his desired school to Hunan University of Education. Yu Cheng then chased after Luo Na and gave her ice cream. He slowly started a conversation and confirmed that she was a coach at the Hunan University School of Education. He asked if they liked Lu Shan, but Luo Na didn't answer. Although Yu Cheng was a guy, he was very sensitive. He knew he wasn't as tall as Lu Shan, but this didn't affect his first choice, to apply to Hunan University School of Education. Yu Cheng casually took off Luo Na's sunglasses and memorized her appearance. After Luo Na returned to school, her senior Wu Jie called her down to eat some pomegranate. She told him about a good prospect she had seen in the competition the day before, but unfortunately, he was too short. Qi Lin didn't have hope for his height, so he directly rejected him. Wu Jie advised her to remember not to give herself away if she met a suitable athlete. As the daughter of an excellent coach, Luo Na had dreamt of becoming an outstanding coach since she was a child. But now, this assistant position really didn't give her much space to show her ability. Half a month later, Yu Cheng was admitted to the university's most popular major, the finance department of the School of Economics and Management. On his first day of school, he saw Luo Na on the track and field and took the initiative to greet her. Luo Na didn't expect that his heart was still set on track and field. Finally, Luo Na promised that as long as Yu Cheng excelled in the School of Economics and Management, she would consider helping him join the school's track and field team. After that, Yu Cheng climbed over the wall to return to the registration point. Then he carried his luggage into the dormitory. The other 3 roommates were named Jun Xiao, Han Dai, and Shi Li. Jun Xiao was asleep on the bed. Han Dai was wearing glasses and was very thin, and the chubby guy playing on the computer was Shi Li. Yu Cheng introduced himself and then went to train. Every day, he wakes up at 4 or 5 in the morning to exercise, run, and go to sleep at 9:30 in the evening. He was always so self-disciplined. One day, he left the training ground through the window as usual, but unexpectedly, he was seen by Luo Na. Luo Na said that she would lock all the windows here. Although Yu Cheng tried to plead, he only received a cold shoulder. Finally, he bargained and wanted Luo Na to be his coach. Although Luo Na rejected Yu Cheng, she privately contacted her father and asked him to provide training materials. Yu Cheng was very disappointed after being rejected, but he didn't give up and continued to practice every day. Suddenly one day, Luo Na was waiting for him outside the stadium. She was ready to become his coach and also gave him a devilish training plan. She asked him to jump over 2.5 meters in a month. Yu Cheng was overjoyed and agreed to all of Luo Na's demands. Lu Shan also joined the high jump team. He sat with Yu Cheng and introduced the high jump team captain, Jiang Tian. This guy was famous as soon as he was mentioned because he could easily jump over 2.2 meters steadily. Last year, he was invited to train with the national team, but was later returned due to poor performance. Yu Cheng directly volunteered to jump 2 meters in his first jump, in front of everyone. And he successfully cleared it. Everyone was very surprised. The coach, Ming Zhuo, who was the high jump coach, gave him a few words of advice and then announced the end of training for the day. Jiang Tian packed up his things, glanced at Yu Cheng, and then left. Yu Cheng foolishly looked at the basketball hanging above his head. He was stunned to see the ball half his height away. In fact, he was extremely envious of Jiang Tian's height. As soon as he saw Luo Na, Ming Zhuo, and Wu Zhe in the distance, Yu Cheng ran over immediately. Wu Zhe knew that this was the good prospect Luo Na had chosen, but he didn't care. As for Ming Zhuo, he promised that if Yu Cheng achieved good results in the training sessions, he could go to Qi Lin to ask him to help him join the team. The School of Economics and Management began to register for credits, and Yu Cheng discovered that Luo Na was teaching a class. He immediately asked his roommates to take that class. Shi Yin also chose that class, because Yu Cheng did. Many people in the finance department followed the girl named Shi Yin and chose this class. In the summer, many people in the finance department chose track and field to study. Before starting, Luo Na had them run 1,500 meters as a warm-up. Except for Yu Cheng, everyone else was completely out of breath. After running, the official class began. Luo Na taught them how to sprint. Yu Cheng adjusted his starting posture as his teacher said, and then he jumped out like a gust of wind. He was so fast that you could only see his afterimage. Yu Cheng could see that Luo Na and Wu Zhe had a very good relationship. He was a little envious. At the end of class, he took out a bottle of water and threw it to Luo Na. She caught the bottle just like how Wu Zhe caught it, making the 19-year-old boy very happy. Suddenly, Yu Cheng got dust in his eyes and felt uncomfortable. Luo Na told him to close his eyes, and after a while, he felt cool water all over his face. It was Luo Na. She had successfully pulled off this little prank, and then ran away laughing. That night, Qi Lin returned to school after a business trip. After receiving a notification from Wu Zhe that night, she called Yu Cheng to the stadium for training. She knew that Qi Lin would definitely be checking the camera, so she intentionally called Yu Cheng to let him be evaluated by Qi Lin through the camera. Sure enough, a while later, Qi Lin called her. After Luo Na showed him the training results, he talked for a long time, implying that he didn't want to let Yu Cheng join the team. Yu Cheng also heard the entire conversation from outside the door. Although he was very disappointed, he still comforted Luo Na first. Seeing the boy like that, Luo Na suddenly changed her mind and turned around to negotiate further. Qi Lin didn't react and said that as long as Yu Cheng could jump 2.1 meters in the school's sports meet, he could join the track and field team. Recently, Luo Na felt too tired, so Wu Zhe thoughtfully suggested that she go hiking at Yuanming Mountain. Yu Cheng learned about this and took the lead to sign up with Shi Yin. The day of the hike arrived. Yu Cheng and his friends arrived first. He called Luo Na and learned that she had just arrived. He asked her to meet at the top of the mountain in an hour and a half so they could have lunch. Luo Na wasn't afraid of the challenge and readily agreed. The hiking competition ended with Luo Na winning overall. But Yu Cheng was very honest and carried a lot of grilling tools in his backpack, so it was understandable that he lost. The two chatted for a while on the top of the mountain, then Wu Zhe arrived. Yu Cheng rented a villa halfway up the mountain and invited Luo Na, but she refused, thinking that she wasn't suitable for hanging out with younger people. Who knew that Yu Cheng kept pulling her to go along, leaving Wu Zhe alone on the mountaintop with all the mess. Hanging out with younger people than her made Luo Na feel a little embarrassed, but she joined in on the young people's games. It was a finger-folding game. If you've never done it, you have to automatically fold one of your fingers down. Yu Chang had never loved anyone or been in love. He honestly folded one finger down. Shi Li and the others were very surprised, saying that someone with Yu Chang's good looks, not having a girlfriend, or never having been in love, was very strange. Yu Chang saw that Luo Na didn't fold her finger, indicating that she had a boyfriend or had had one, which made the young man a little sad. As night fell, Wu Zhe also came to hang out with the students. Then he exposed Luo Na's dating history. Yu Chang didn't want to listen and quickly changed the subject. Shi Yan looked at Yu Chang, but he only looked at Luo Na and Wu Zhi. They understood each other and laughed. Yu Chang was extremely envious. When the fun ended, Luo Na and Wu Zhi returned to the hotel. Shi Yan teased Yu Chang. He was very afraid of being tickled, so he reacted strongly and accidentally sprained his ankle. Shi Yan really just wanted to confess to him, but the mood had disappeared, so she gave up. Luo Na and Wu Zhi came back to the hotel drunk. They made a date to watch the sunrise, but Luo Na fell asleep the next day. Wu Zhi, as always, went to buy breakfast for her early in the morning. Back at school, Luo Na was ready to go train. After all, the competition was getting ready. There were 2 spots for the high jump competition, one for Jiang Tian, the captain, and the other for Lu Shan. Jiang Tian's conditions were very good, but he always messed up when he competed. Luo Na said that his family situation was not good. If he didn't have a scholarship, he wouldn't even be able to go to school. Perhaps due to too much pressure, he didn't perform well when he competed. Yu Chang's leg injury hadn't healed yet. He found an excuse to ask Luo Na for leave. Luo Na felt something was wrong, so she went directly to the dormitory to find him. Luckily, he was hiding in the closet. He explained that his mother had come, and he needed to go shopping with her. Luo Na thought she might have been overthinking, so she didn't ask further. The school sports festival was approaching. Luo Na discovered that Yu Chang had registered for the 100-meter race, but he didn't show up, so she had to change athletes temporarily. Luo Na went to the high jump venue to watch. Seeing Yu Chang jumping 1.8 meters, she directly changed the height to 2.1 meters. Luo Na noticed that his ankle was abnormal. She immediately stopped the competition. Ming Zhuo also said the same thing. Luo Na forced Yu Chang to give up the competition and quickly took him to the hospital to see what was wrong with his injury. As soon as they entered the hospital, Luo Na pulled out a wheelchair, but the elevator was malfunctioning. So she carried Yu Chang to the 5th floor. The doctor said the injury wasn't too serious, and with Yu Chang's good physical fitness, he could recover in 3 weeks. Luo Na was disappointed in Yu Chang for hiding his leg injury. Later, Wu Zhi helped Luo Na bring food to Yu Chang. He told Luo Na that Yu Chang got injured and was scolded by Director Qi for not knowing about the athlete's injury. Luckily, this was still within the school's jurisdiction. If it were a major competition, Luo Na's coaching career would have been over. She didn't know if the situation was really that serious, but anyway, Yu Chang believed what he said. He didn't dare to text Luo Na anymore, for fear of bothering her. Yu Chang began to find ways to apologize to Luo Na. First, he wrote an apology letter, but Luo Na didn't even read it. His roommate started to show his talent and taught Yu Chang how to write, so that it was touching and heartfelt. Then, he tried to apologize to Luo Na by making a slide. He also called some classmates to help. Luo Na was surrounded by many balloons, and on those balloons were filled with apologies. Yu Chang stood on a higher staircase and slid the apology letter down to her. But Luo Na didn't respond. She let the balloon float down with the letter. She also put the rope in her hand down. During the meal, Yu Chang looked at her through the window, like he had done something wrong, but Luo Na ignored him. Wu Zhi was sitting there, eating with Luo Na. He didn't understand why. Clearly it was Yu Chang's fault, but she was angry here. Luo Na was annoyed by him, and stood up and left without eating. Yu Chang waited outside Luo Na's dormitory for a long time, from night to morning. Luo Na woke up and saw him still there, so she gently went down to meet him. Yu Chang told her what was in his heart. She was very important to him. She was different from his previous coaches. They only taught him to high jump as a hobby because he was not tall enough. But Luo Na was very important to him. So Yu Chang didn't want to lose such a good coach just because of this. He spoke very sincerely, and Luo Na finally forgave him. On the 3rd day of the school sports meet, Yu Chang went to watch the competition with Luo Na and Wu Zhi. After watching them sprint, he confidently asserted that they didn't run as fast as him. After the competition ended, time flew by. In late autumn of 2015, Chi Lin returned to school for a day from a business trip and was spotted by Luo Na. She came here today because of Yu Cheng. She gave Chi Lin Yu Cheng's training results. Unable to refuse Luo Na's request, Chi Lin reluctantly allowed Yu Cheng to join the school's team. But at the provincial level athletic meet, the school only had 2 spots, one for Jiang Tian and one for Lu Shan. Yu Cheng had no chance. Luo Na took a step back. After all, Yu Cheng had joined the school team, so let him train more seriously. When she told Yu Cheng the good news, he was in the calligraphy class. The room was very quiet, but suddenly, Yu Cheng stood up and slammed the table, making everyone jump. That night, he invited everyone out to celebrate his joining the school team. He also invited Luo Na, but she declined. Yu Cheng was obviously very disappointed and didn't even bother to eat, saying he was maintaining his body fat percentage. Lu Shan learned that Luo Na was opening a private training studio for Yu Cheng, so he also ran over to train with him in the morning. Because Lu Shan was also a member of the school team, Luo Na treated them equally. This made Yu Cheng a little jealous. So, he said that he would go back early for the second half of the day. Luo Na saw this and ran out to talk to him privately. Yu Cheng perked up and changed his attitude, saying that he would focus all his energy on training. Then he successfully joined the school team. He was very kind and immediately made a good impression on his teammates. He also met a girl on the weightlifting team named Xiu Ji. As soon as they arrived, Principal Wang asked Ming Zhuo to organize an evaluation. Jiang Tian quickly cleared the 2.15-meter height. Lu Shan and Yu Cheng followed. Lu Shan's 2.05-meter jump was also quite smooth. Yu Cheng didn't fall far behind. Principal Wang felt that this boy Yu Cheng was pretty good. He immediately told Ming Zhuo to adjust the height to 2.1 meters. As a result, neither of them could clear that height. At that time, Yu Cheng only had one chance left. He got ready to jump in his final attempt. This time, he didn't clear the bar either. The competition ended in a tie. Principal Wang directly stood up and chose Lu Shan to be a member of the team, competing in the provincial meet. Yu Cheng was very unhappy and loudly questioned Principal Wang. But his anger didn't achieve anything. Then he went to the grass to sit alone, to adjust his emotions. Luo Na knew that Yu Cheng had put a lot of effort into this trial, and also knew that he didn't want to see this outcome. So she told Yu Cheng to find Wu Jie. Wu Jie let him change his shoes and then go to the track. Yu Cheng's performance was very good. He came in second after Hong Lin. Hong Wen came in third and was directly kicked out of the competition by the coach. He felt that Yu Cheng had taken his place in the competition and sat alone on the stands feeling sad. Jiang Tian came over and accused Yu Cheng of embarrassing Luo Na. He said that everyone was gossiping lately, asking how much money Coach Luo had received from Yu Cheng. Yu Cheng couldn't take it anymore and grabbed Jiang Tian's collar. His eyes were blazing. Jiang Tian didn't show weakness either. He emphasized that in the track and field team, everything was about results. The two were about to physically fight, but luckily another coach stepped in to stop them. Then Xu Ji said to Yu Cheng that Luo Na was Jiang Tian's benefactor, so Jiang Tian would definitely defend her. Luo Na showed Wu Ji Yu Cheng's results. Her face was full of pride. Wu Ji wanted Yu Cheng to train with him in the 100-meter race, but Luo Na didn't want to. But this time, she asked Wu Ji to let Yu Cheng participate in the men's 100-meter race. Seeing her face like that, Wu Ji agreed. The next 20 days, Yu Cheng trained hard with Wu Ji. He wanted to achieve excellent results at the provincial sports meet. On the first day of the meet, Luo Na brought Yu Cheng into the arena, while Jiang Tian stayed outside. Whenever Jiang Tian was panicked during a major competition, Luo Na would comfort and encourage him. She cheered him on to compete with a normal mindset, like when he was training. Xu Ji told Luo Na to go first, and she would stay with Jiang Tian. Yu Cheng's 100-meter performance was still very good. Although the two people next to him were very strong, Yu Cheng had the advantage of mental stability. He directly ran the 100 meters in 11.5 seconds, and easily took first place. There was a woman in the stands cheering for Yu Cheng. After he received the results, he went to find her. He shyly called her mom. Wu Jie and Luo Na were stunned, because at a glance, she looked no older than 30. You really wouldn't believe it if you didn't see it with your own eyes. Soon after the 100-meter race ended, Luo Na received a notification that Lu Shan had been injured and couldn't compete. Yu Cheng went with them to see Lu Shan. The doctor said he couldn't participate in the competition in his current condition. So Yu Cheng would replace Lu Shan. Ming Zhuo had to allow him to participate in the high jump. Yu Cheng's mom saw Luo Na and immediately went to talk to her warmly. Luo Na was a bit introverted and felt overwhelmed by such an extroverted person. Luckily, Wu Ji called her away in time. The competition was very intense, and the one appearing was Jian Ping, the defending champion of this competition. He had won 3 consecutive gold medals in the summer meets. As soon as he entered, he jumped over 2 meters with ease. Ming Zhuo called his 2 team members over to announce the starting height. He told Jiang Tian to start at 2 meters. Yu Cheng started at 1.9 meters to secure a solid score. According to the competition rules this year, those who cleared 2 meters could directly enter the finals, and then 12 out of 37 participants would be selected. This was still a little pressure for Jiang Tian and Yu Cheng. Yu Cheng cleared 1.95 meters. In contrast, Jiang Tian's psychological pressure was too great. His first test jump at 2 meters not only exceeded the time limit, but also failed. Then, Yu Cheng continued to successfully clear 2 meters, but Jiang Tian failed again and again. He was furious with himself. He kicked the signs next to him and took it out on others. Zhu Ji was worried about him, so she went over to comfort and encourage him. A moment later, Luo Na came to talk to him. Jiang Tian didn't understand why he always panicked when he competed. He felt like the bar was pressing down on him like Mount Tai. Luo Na gave him time to think carefully about whether to continue training for the high jump or not. Yu Cheng still had 1 competition left. Luo Na told him to prepare well and not be affected by anything else. The provincial athletic meet was more than halfway over. The finals would begin soon. Shi Yin wanted to cheer for Yu Cheng, but he insisted that she shouldn't come. He then used all of his muscles on his face to signal Luo Na to help. Luo Na finally understood what he meant, so she came up with a suitable excuse and made Shi Yin give up. As soon as they turned to get in the car, Luo Na joked that she could see that Shi Yin liked Yu Cheng. And Yu Cheng also knew that she liked him, so he tried to stop her from coming to cheer. Principal Wang saw that the athlete wasn't worried, but he was already nervous. He told Luo Na to take Yu Cheng to practice somewhere to ensure that he competed well, because after all this was Yu Cheng's first time participating in such a major competition. Luo Na believed in Yu Cheng's mental fortitude and also hoped that Qi Lin would trust her. The opening event of the finals was the men's 200-meter race. Wu Ji was very worried. Hung Lin, his student, was the most promising candidate for the championship this time. As the starting gun fired, Wu Ji also clicked the stopwatch in his hand, and Hung Lin was the first to cross the finish line. Wu Ji excitedly cheered, and Qi Lin was also very happy. But Wu Ji was even more ecstatic. Principal Wang turned his head and motioned to Luo Na once again. She got up and took Yu Cheng to relax elsewhere. Jiang Tian wasn't competing today, but he still came because he remembered that Xu Ji had a competition. He hoped she could do well and avoid any regrets like he had. Initially, Luo Na took Yu Cheng to relax, but he pulled her to the amusement center to have fun. When Yu Cheng competed in the afternoon, Ming Zhuo said a few words. Yu Cheng nodded and immediately entered the competition. He was in a very good state, and his first jump went very smoothly. The competition time passed by quickly. Only Yu Cheng and Jian Ping remained on the field, competing for the championship. One was the reigning champion, the owner of 3 gold medals, and the other was just a newcomer from Hunan University. Everyone thought that Jian Ping would obviously win this time. To make Yu Cheng back down, Jian Ping directly declared that he would jump 2.6 meters in his next jump. Ming Zhuo saw that Yu Cheng was not only not afraid, but also full of confidence. So he told him to try jumping 2.6 meters and take a chance. Yu Cheng went first and cleared that bar on his first try, putting the pressure on Jian Ping. Obviously, he had underestimated this newcomer. Luo Na thought that Yu Cheng's momentum might have really affected Jian Ping's mental state, causing him to barely clear that height this time. But according to Wu Ji's analysis, it was most likely that Jian Ping had taken a few years off due to injury, so he took this opportunity to come back to maintain his position, but he didn't expect to meet such a strong opponent. Yu Cheng's bar height was raised to 2.9 meters. Surprisingly, Yu Cheng directly asked to skip it, once again putting pressure on Jian Ping. Jian Ping still had his skills and successfully cleared 2.9 meters. The next challenge for the 2 boys was 2.12 meters. This was a height that Yu Cheng had never reached before and had never trained for. As he prepared to jump, Luo Na and the others were anxiously standing in the stands. As expected, he didn't clear it on the first try. But Jianping also didn't clear it. On their second jump, they both failed. Without planning it, they would compete for the championship with their third jump. Yu Cheng's success rate on his third jump was always very high, and this time, he also cleared the challenge he had never attempted before. Jianping still couldn't clear that height, making Yu Cheng the champion of this tournament. After the competition, everyone surrounded Yu Cheng, but the only thing he saw was Coach Luo Na's smile. During the meal, many girls secretly watched Yu Cheng. Luo Na joked that he was very popular with the girls, but he didn't reply, just mumbled something. Luo Na looked up and told him that he shouldn't date while training and competing because it would make him lose focus. The 100-meter coach from the sports university was very impressed with Yu Cheng and publicly wanted to bring him to her team. She said that no matter how high the level of the coach or how professional the facilities were, they were all better than at Hunan University. Yu Cheng also expressed his attitude clearly. Wherever Luo Na was, he would be there. While waiting for the competition, Yu Cheng went to change his clothes. Unexpectedly, someone jealous and envious hammered nails into his shoes, injuring him. The competition was about to start. Yu Cheng still hadn't come out, so Luo Na called him. This time, he learned his lesson and didn't hide anything anymore. He honestly told her about his injury. Luo Na immediately went in to check the situation and called Dr. Chen. After examining Yu Cheng's condition, the doctor said that this minor injury wouldn't affect the competition. However, most people who experience this situation will have a lot of mental pressure, which could easily negatively impact the competition. Yu Cheng believed he had a tough spirit that no one could match, so he didn't care. With Luo Na's encouragement, Yu Cheng confidently stepped up to the starting line. Luo Na discovered that Hong Wen was the one who had hammered nails into Yu Cheng's shoes. She called him over for a private conversation. Initially, she only asked Hong Wen to apologize to Yu Cheng, then she would let it go, but he showed no remorse. There was a heated argument between them, and Wu Jie came over. If he hadn't come to call them away, Luo Na might have actually dragged Hong Wen to find Principal Wang. The men's 100-meter finals began. Although Yu Cheng had an injured leg, he still took second place with a time of 10.77 seconds. Luo Na was so moved that she was excited, and tears welled up in her eyes. Then Principal Wang also learned about Hong Wen nailing Yu Cheng's shoes. He knew this was enough to expel him, but he still wanted to give the student a chance. He said that Yu Cheng was the one affected, so they should ask for his opinion. Luo Na said directly that Yu Cheng didn't know about this, and he didn't have any opinions. After this competition, it was clear that Yu Cheng was not only good at high jump, but also could run the 100 meters. Principal Wang always believed that height was Yu Cheng's biggest disadvantage. If he wanted to develop further, he hoped that Luo Na could guide him to switch to the running event. Wu Jie had known Principal Wang's thoughts for a long time, otherwise, he wouldn't have let Yu Cheng participate in the 100-meter race. Yu Cheng wanted to invite everyone out to celebrate. He wanted to eat, but it was up to Luo Na to decide where. Luo Na felt that the team members were all very hungry. She thought Yu Cheng's prize money wouldn't be enough, but he grinned and said that he had a lot of allowance. Hearing this, Luo Na felt even more disdain because he was dependent on his parents. Then the young man thought of another way. His family had a 3-story house in the suburbs, with a yard outside. They could buy ingredients and cook outside. This would not only save money, but also make everyone eat comfortably and happily. Luo Na thought this was feasible, so she nodded in agreement. Yu Cheng's mother guessed that he might be bringing a girl he liked today. She thought that Shi Yin was pretty, so she was very enthusiastic towards her. Luo Na was standing next to the grill. Seeing her with Wu Jie, Yu Cheng sat slumped and drank wine until his face turned red. Then he ran over to Luo Na and asked her if she was jealous. Luo Na thought that he must have been drunk and talking nonsense. Then Yu Cheng took out the gold medal he won in the competition for youth ages 10 to 12. He said that he was only 9 years old at the time, but he had lied about his age to participate in the competition. Yu Cheng promised that he would win the provincial championship, then the national championship, and then win the world championship in the future. And he would give her all the medals he won. Yu Cheng's mother accidentally heard about her son's injury because of a nail and immediately reacted. She asked Luo Na what had happened. Yu Cheng told her to leave first and then explained the situation to his mother. Wu Ji noticed that Luo Na's mood was off, so he asked her a few questions. Luo Na emphasized that her relationship with him was only coach-athlete. Although she said this, she thought about it a lot that night. Yu Cheng's recent training results did not improve. A month had passed, but he was still stuck at 2.14 meters. Principal Wang demanded that Yu Cheng switch to running. If Luo Na didn't speak up, Qilin might ask someone else to tell him. Luo Na knew Yu Cheng's personality. If someone else told him this, he might not accept it. At this time, Yu Cheng was still training hard. Lu Shan, Jiang Tian, and Xu Ji were planning to go to the internet cafe for entertainment, but Yu Cheng still wanted to stay and train alone. Luo Na went to see him personally and took the young man to the internet cafe to play games. Luo Na was a terrible gamer, so Yu Cheng took her hand to guide her, which was a very intimate scene. Principal Wang discovered that the coach and some members of the team were not there. He angrily scolded Ming Zhuo. Wu Ji received a call and immediately went to the internet cafe to bring the students back. Luo Na, Wu Ji, and Yu Cheng all admitted their fault, making Principal Wang even angrier. He punished them all. Luo Na recalled what Wu Shi had told her not long ago. Principal Wang had talked to him and asked if he wanted to take Yu Cheng into the running team. Later, Luo Na learned that Principal Wang had made a decision. Wu Shi was more open to it because this was just a change of event for Yu Cheng, not a removal from the team. So Wu Ji thought it was fine. However, Luo Na knew that high jump was Yu Cheng's lifelong dream and what he had been pursuing all these years. The new semester ended, and Chinese New Year was approaching. Luo Na's parents were both overseas, so she would be spending New Year's Eve alone. Yu Cheng invited her to his home for the new year, but Luo Na refused. On New Year's Eve, Yu Cheng specifically called Luo Na and asked her to listen to the sound of the waves. The two chatted for a while, then Luo Na urged him to return to his parents. Before hanging up, Wu Ji called. He was waiting downstairs next to a motorcycle, dressed in cool clothes. He was holding a large bouquet of red roses. Taking advantage of the opportunity, Wu Ji half-jokingly asked Luo Na how she felt about him. Luo Na smiled and replied that they were too close to play this kind of game, and she quickly changed the subject. Knowing the answer in advance, Wu Ji was still very sad, but he didn't say anything. Back in the dormitory, Luo Na sat down to reply to Yu Cheng's message. She wanted to send him a message to encourage him not to give up, but she suddenly remembered Wu Ji's words. So she deleted the message and edited it into something else. The new year passed quickly. After the winter break and eating a lot of sticky rice cakes, many team members had a higher body fat percentage. Ming Zhuo strictly demanded that Lu Shan needed to lose weight. Wu Ji was ready to bring up the change of events. Luo Na knew that although Yu Cheng looked very obedient, he was actually very stubborn. Wu Zi said that if Yu Cheng didn't switch this time, it would cause him long-term damage. Luo Na finally found an opportunity to take Yu Cheng out to play. They walked along the beach. Luo Na didn't say anything about changing teams, but Yu Cheng knew. He expressed what he really cared about, just like what Luo Na thought. Yu Cheng told her why he liked high jump. In fact, to increase his height, he had been training for high jump since he was very young. When he was little, his parents were always busy with their work. He was alone on the island and accidentally fell in love with high jump. High jump had been with him for many years. And now, Yu Cheng almost couldn't give up high jump. Luo Na might have been persuaded by him, so she told him to keep training well and that she would find a way about the rest of it. Luo Na had bought a set of books that Qilin really liked. Before she could mention Yu Cheng, Principal Wang happily showed her the file of Mao Qi, an 18-year-old boy who was very talented in high jump. Principal Wang had asked Luo Na to get ready and accompany him to meet the boy. The two of them drove to Mao Qi's house. His house was in a mountain village with a very bumpy road. Even though Luo Na drove very slowly, Qilin's stomach was still growling. When they got there, they happened to meet Qilin's old friend, Li, who was using a broom handle to hit a young boy. Qilin went over to greet him, and Li told the boy to greet Qilin and Luo Na. The 18-year-old boy with natural curly hair was Mao Qi. Later, someone simply set up a rope hanging horizontally, at a height of about 2.1 meters, and Mao Qi simply jumped over it without any effort. Qilin and Luo Na were both stunned. Luo Na thought to herself that this was the time she had met a formidable opponent. Mao Qi had a special talent for high jumping. Qi Lin immediately decided to bring him back to school for a few months. After the college entrance exam, he could enroll. Mao Qi's mother was overjoyed to learn that her son could go to college. Luo Na helped Mao Qi pack his things for school, and Qi Lin helped him with the registration process. After Lu Shan heard the news, he couldn't help but complain to Wu Cheng. Wu Cheng said nothing but felt a surge of unease inside. Just as Luo Na walked over with Mao Qi, Wu Cheng greeted her. Lu Shan looked up when he heard this, and as soon as he saw Luo Na, he automatically closed his mouth and quickly greeted her. Luo Na was very caring towards the new member, not only buying him a toothbrush, a water cup, and other supplies, but also personally helping him to make his bed. Wu Cheng couldn't stand to see that, and took the initiative to help. Today was Mao Qi's first day here. Luo Na asked Lu Shan and Wu Cheng to take Mao Qi out to eat crayfish. Wu Cheng was forced to take on the responsibility of taking care of this 18-year-old little brother. Mao Qi had never eaten crayfish before. It was incredibly spicy, but no matter how spicy it was, he stuffed it into his mouth fiercely. He didn't even bother to spit out the shells. Lu Shan's casual words inadvertently aroused Wu Cheng's competitive spirit. He also ate fiercely with the 18-year-old boy. Jiang Tian and the others could see that Wu Cheng was competing with Mao Qi. During training, Mao Qi jumped high in front of his coach for the first time. He didn't even have the proper running rhythm, but he could still easily jump over 2.1 meters. Lu Shan looked up in disbelief. After Luo Na arrived, Ming Zhou talked to her. He highly praised Mao Qi, thinking he was a high jump prodigy. And he was sure that Mao Qi wouldn't stay on their team for long, because he would surely be taken away by the national team. Wu Cheng saw Luo Na treating Mao Qi very well and felt extremely jealous. Luo Na noticed that he was in a bad mood, so she came to chat with him. It wasn't until Luo Na said that she paid more attention to Wu Cheng that he smiled, his mood suddenly brightening. Not long after, Mao Qi easily jumped over a height of 2.14 meters after receiving systematic training. Luo Na remembered Coach Yang Jin, so she decided to go on a business trip, specifically to find out if he was willing to coach Wu Cheng. That morning's practice, Luo Na told Wu Cheng that she was going to travel for a while. Wu Cheng promised that after she returned, he would definitely clear the 2.14 meter mark. During Luo Na's absence, Wu Cheng basically had to take care of Mao Qi, and the young man followed Wu Cheng around like a little tail. After Luo Na returned, she called Wu Cheng over and gave him a souvenir, which made the young man very happy. During training, Wu Cheng specifically dragged Luo Na over to watch. Finally, he cleared the 2.14 meter mark. But unexpectedly, Mao Qi jumped over 2.18 meters. Wu Cheng's little happiness was snuffed out before it could even ignite. Luo Na's comfort was useless. Wang Qilin placed the nomination form for the high jump athletes for the 10 national games on Luo Na's desk, calling her over to write the names of the nominated athletes. Luo Na thought for a moment and wrote down the names of Lu Shan and Mao Qi on it. Wu Cheng regretted his attitude towards her earlier and ran over to apologize, but he knew that Luo Na wouldn't participate in the morning training session with him in the future. Tears welled up in his eyes, and he pulled over the list she was covering to glimpse the names of Lu Shan and Mao Qi. Wu Cheng immediately asked repeatedly, with a heartbroken tone, if she was the one who wrote it. Wu Cheng saw the names of Lu Shan and Mao Qi on the nomination form. He was both upset and angry. Luo Na didn't hesitate to call the young man out of her office and asked directly if he was jealous of Mao Qi. Although Wu Cheng denied it, every cell in his body clearly showed that he was indeed paying close attention to Mao Qi's high jump talent. Wu Cheng said angrily that he wouldn't take care of Mao Qi anymore, giving the excuse that he had classes. Luo Na hoped that he could adjust his mentality. Wu Cheng was angry because she didn't write his name on the nomination form. He thought that Luo Na didn't believe in his abilities. In the end, he angrily walked away. That night, Luo Na received a call from Principal Wang. She angrily threw all her anger about Wu Cheng at him. Wang Qilin wondered if she had eaten gunpowder to be so tense. Before he could finish speaking, Luo Na hung up the phone. Mao Qi handed his meal card to Wu Cheng, but unexpectedly got yelled at. When Luo Na found out, she said that Wu Cheng was in a bad mood and hoped that Mao Qi wouldn't take it to heart. Luo Na told Mao Qi that he might be able to participate in the citywide sports meet. During the conversation, Luo Na accidentally learned that his phone had been broken for half a month, so she asked Wu Zi to go with her to buy a new phone for Mao Qi. The two of them took the bus back to school. Luo Na asked Wu Zi who he planned to let participate in the next sprint race. Hearing this, he felt like Luo Na wanted Wu Cheng to participate in the 100-meter race again. On the other hand, Wu Cheng had been angry for a long time and was ready to throw away the gift Luo Na gave him the other day. But after thinking for a while, he decided to run over to apologize to Luo Na, but he accidentally overheard her conversation with Wu Zi. It turned out that she genuinely felt that Mao Qi could surpass Wu Cheng's best high jump score, no matter how hard Wu Cheng trained. The damage was done. Wu Cheng's mental defense crumbled once more. He didn't even care much about his studies, and his grades on several regular exams had clearly declined. During the group training session for the track and field team, he directly skipped 3 group trainings. Wu Zi said that his training enthusiasm had reduced recently. Wu Zi didn't believe in Wu Cheng's determination, and after 2 sentences, Luo Na directly became upset and put down her chopsticks, leaving the table. She didn't even manage to eat a single bite. Wu Zi picked up his chopsticks, but he couldn't swallow his food either. During the next training session, Wu Zi reminded Wu Cheng to train for the sprint well. Wu Cheng didn't want to run until he heard those words. It seemed that Luo Na wanted him to switch to the 100-meter race. As soon as Luo Na arrived, Wu Cheng directly asked her if she could go back to guiding him in high jump if he agreed to run the 100 meters. Before Luo Na could answer, Wu Cheng understood and decided to run the 100 meters according to her arrangement. Wu Cheng no longer sat next to Luo Na. Mao Qi was in that seat now, and they were chatting with Lu Shan next to them. Wu Cheng looked at Luo Na, filled with unspoken sadness. The coach from the sports university offered him a chance to join their track and field team. Wu Cheng neither refused nor accepted. In the next 100-meter race, Wu Cheng won first place in both the first and second groups. On the other side, the high jump competition started soon after. Mao Qi jumped over the 2-meter mark effortlessly. Wu Zi opened his mouth in astonishment. The truth was exactly as Luo Na said. Mao Qi simply treated the competition as a warm-up and didn't care about it at all. The afternoon was the time for the final of the 100-meter race. Hong Wen actually ran a time of 10.7 seconds, faster than Wu Cheng, and won first place. He shouted in front of Wu Cheng and talked nonsense to the people on the field. Luo Na saw that Wu Cheng was wronged and immediately decided to report Hong Wen for using performance-enhancing drugs. But unfortunately, she was only an assistant coach and didn't even have the authority to report it. At this moment, Wu Zi stepped forward and helped Luo Na report Hong Wen under his own name. That night, Wu Cheng's mood was extremely bad. Xi Li was a little worried, so he called Wu Zi and Luo Na to ask about the situation. The 3 of them gathered downstairs in the dormitory, and after confirming with Xi Li that Wu Cheng was all right, they finally breathed a sigh of relief. The next day, Wu Cheng didn't go to training camp. Luo Na ran over to talk to him. Wu Cheng spoke in a reproachful tone, thinking that since she no longer needed or trusted him, his performance couldn't improve. Luo Na was waiting for the results of the doping test, so she couldn't pay attention to Ming Zhou's words. He told her to go get a few sandbags, but she was so focused on her phone and returned empty-handed. Mao Qi was particularly concerned about Wu Cheng and went to ask the coach about his situation. Naturally, neither Wu Zi nor Luo Na wanted to talk. Mao Qi couldn't figure out what they were thinking and wanted to ask again, but Lu Shan stopped him. Mao Qi then called Wu Cheng. Wu Cheng looked at the phone and saw it was Mao Qi, so he was disappointed and shoved the phone back into his pocket without even glancing at it. Xi Yan could tell that Wu Cheng had been in a bad mood recently. She thought it was because of the recent competition that made him unhappy, but Wu Cheng was not the type to be downcast because of frustration. She guessed it was because of Luo Na. Wu Cheng's words interrupted her next words and cut off her speculation. Luo Na was very curious to know the results of the doping test for Hong Wen. While she was talking to Wu Zi, the phone rang. It was from the testing center. The final results were in, and Hong Wen had indeed used performance-enhancing drugs. Wu Zi's job was saved. Luo Na was overjoyed and immediately decided to inform Wu Cheng of the news. She also asked Wu Zi to tell Principal Wang. Wu Zi said she was the real hero. Luo Na laughed and immediately treated Wu Zi politely, inviting him to dinner unconditionally. Later, while eating, Wu Zi happened to see Wu Cheng. He told Wu Cheng the news about the changed results but with his current appearance, he really didn't deserve first place. Wu Zi got up and went to buy something. Wu Cheng's mind suddenly woke up, and he chased after Wu Zi, asking why the competition results had changed. Wu Zi then recounted everything Luo Na had done for him. Only then did Wu Cheng understand. He quickly ran to find Luo Na. He asked her if she wanted him to continue training in sports. Luo Na said that the head teacher had come to her, saying he didn't want him to spend time on training because it negatively impacted his other subjects. Wu Cheng only cared if Luo Na was willing to let him train in sports again. Luo Na calmly told him that his life was in his own hands and she couldn't control it. Wu Cheng thought that Luo Na was extremely disappointed in him, but Luo Na denied it. She just felt that Wu Cheng didn't shine like he did initially. Heartbroken, he went back to drink with his classmates again. When he got drunk, he got up to leave, but asked his classmates not to follow him. Shi Li was very worried and followed him. When he saw him standing by the bridge railing, his heart clenched, hoping that he wouldn't do anything reckless. But Wu Cheng was still unsteady and fell into the deep water. As soon as the water engulfed him, many images suddenly appeared in his mind. He became unusually clear-headed and quickly swam to the surface. His roommates were so scared that they called the police and searched the river for a long time, but couldn't find him. They all thought that Wu Cheng had disappeared, so they called Luo Na to give her the bad news. But at that time, Wu Cheng had already met Luo Na, and he was currently sleeping soundly in her dormitory. The three friends were relieved when they saw that Wu Cheng was safe. They originally wanted to carry Wu Cheng back, but Luo Na said he could stay and sleep here, and she would sleep on the sofa. No problem at all. After they left, Wu Cheng took his medicine and continued to sleep. Luo Na watched him sleep. The next morning, when the sun was high, Wu Cheng woke up early and sat by the window watching Luo Na sleep. Her hand drooped down, so Wu Cheng stretched out his hand and silently touched her finger. The morning sunlight was just right, and the wind blew gently. Wu Cheng felt that Luo Na's sleeping face was extremely beautiful, and he couldn't help but lean down and look at her with adoration. Luo Na was asleep and oblivious. Wu Cheng specifically bought breakfast for his roommates and sincerely apologized. He planned to continue training in sports, but he wouldn't let his studies fall behind. Wu Cheng then changed his clothes and ran over to greet Luo Na enthusiastically. He awkwardly asked her if he had done anything inappropriate last night when he was drunk. Luo Na admitted that he hadn't done anything except hug her hand, cry for forgiveness, and take her bed. Wu Cheng finally felt relieved, bowed deeply, and thanked her sincerely. He followed Luo Na back to the track and field team for training. Lu Shan and Mao Qi were gossiping about someone jumping into the river last night. Luo Na heard this and added a few mocking words, conveniently glancing at Wu Cheng while she spoke. He was extremely embarrassed. Fortunately, they didn't know that the person who jumped into the river because that person was drunk was him. Lu Shan took the initiative to care for Wu Cheng, even though his words weren't very kind. Wu Cheng apologized to him directly. Mao Qi simply said everything was strange. One person actively cared for another, but the other would actively apologize. Soon after, the school closed and Wu Cheng stayed behind to train. He also moved the cactus that Jia Shi Li had been taking care of to the high jump team's dormitory. When Lu Shan saw Wu Cheng, he still mocked him, saying he wasn't suitable at all. When Mao Qi saw Wu Cheng return, he was overjoyed and directly jumped on him like a cat that saw a piece of meat. Wu Cheng's animosity towards Mao Qi wasn't actually that great. He promised to take him for a haircut, acting completely like he was caring for his own younger brother. Later, Luo Na asked Wu Cheng to try throwing the shot put, discus, and javelin. She also recorded videos to send to Coach Yang Jin. After watching the videos, Coach Yang Jin promised to coach Wu Cheng and come to Hunan University next week. Wu Cheng saw his name on the list of honor students. He immediately remembered Wu Zi's words. It turned out that Luo Na had done a lot for him. At that moment, Luo Na and Wu Zi walked over. She had something to tell Wu Cheng. He directly pulled her to the other side, where Wu Zi wasn't. Luo Na hoped Wu Cheng could train comprehensively, and she had also secured a senior coach for him. Wu Cheng was very moved, because he could continue training in high jump. Mao Qi, Wu Cheng, and Lu Shan went out to eat street skewers together. Lu Shan said that Wu Cheng was being spoiled now, and becoming arrogant because he had never seen Luo Na treat any athlete as well as she treated him. Hearing this, Wu Cheng puffed up his chest and couldn't help but smile. It was a smile of pride and happiness. The next day, Luo Na took Wu Cheng to the bookstore and bought many books so he could strengthen his theoretical knowledge. Coach Yang Jin paid great attention to the combination of learning and practice. After all, she was the one who recommended Wu Cheng, and she couldn't let him ruin her reputation. Wu Cheng was still asking Luo Na what Lu Shan said yesterday. She admitted that she did spoil him, but if he didn't train hard, he would be given special care. After saying that, she slapped a book on Wu Cheng's head. Kui Lin and Yang Jin were good friends. When Yang Jin came, they celebrated by drinking together. After 3 rounds of drinking, they called each other brothers. Then they went to meet Wu Cheng. Luo Na and Wu Zi followed Kui Lin and Yang Jin to the high jump team's dormitory. As a result, the 3 big men all fell asleep in the dorm. Wu Cheng sent Luo Na back and told her he still had a place to go. She didn't need to worry. The next day, Wu Cheng went to practice with Yang Jin. Yang Jin gave him some knowledge and then gave him 3 days to train. This opportunity wasn't easy to come by, so Wu Cheng worked hard. He read books and trained hard, not allowing anything to fall behind. Luo Na saw him reading under a tree and went over to say a few words before leaving. Wu Cheng said he was about to go for lunch, so he invited her to sit down with him. Then Wu Cheng continued reading his book, and Luo Na fell asleep next to him. Wu Cheng couldn't hold back and leaned over to kiss Luo Na's lips, as lightly as a dragonfly skimming the water. Her eyes suddenly opened. Wu Cheng was so embarrassed that he quickly ran away, grabbed his books and ran away in a hurry. Luo Na couldn't stop thinking about Wu Cheng's kiss. When she went back to the office, Wu Zi came to give her Wu Cheng's health checkup report. Luo Na was so flustered that she didn't know where her phone was ringing. Yang Jin called her to the gymnasium. He wanted to tell her that the provincial team would be holding training sessions for university athletes next week. Yang Jin wanted to register Wu Cheng. Even though he had just changed his discipline, he highly valued Wu Cheng. If he trained well, he could definitely reach 6,600. This level was enough to participate in the competition. Luo Na saw that her expectations for Wu Cheng were very high, so naturally, she had no objections to him going to training. After saying that, Luo Na ran out of the gymnasium. Wu Cheng wanted to chase after her, but Lu Shan and Mao Qi stopped him to go eating. Wu Cheng sent a message to Luo Na, saying that he was going to the provincial team for training, but she replied coldly, "I know." 2 days later, Wu Cheng and Yang Jin got on the bus to the provincial team. He didn't see Luo Na come to see him off, and he felt a little disappointed, always feeling that she was deliberately avoiding him. After Wu Cheng left, Luo Na remained in a state of disbelief, her soul seemingly floating in the clouds. She asked Wu Zi a question. Wu Zi knew that something must have happened between her and Wu Cheng. However, he honestly gave his opinion. If a female coach likes him, it's a good thing. If not, then it's fine to ignore it. The announcement about the athletes going to training was broadcast from the loudspeaker overhead. Kui Lin had a lot of things to do with student recruitment, so he asked Luo Na to take the other athletes to the training center instead of him. At first, she didn't want to go, but then suddenly changed her mind and dragged Wu Zi with her. Wu Cheng wanted to send Luo Na a message, but he hesitated constantly and then directly deleted the message. Yang Jin knew he wasn't in the mood to train, so he said that Luo Na and Wu Zi had taken the other athletes there. He could go over and have lunch with them later. Luo Na encountered an athlete named Guo Bin. After learning that Hong Wen had been caught using performance-enhancing drugs and expelled from the school, no one knows where he is now. Luo Na didn't see Wu Cheng in the dormitory, so she gathered her courage and went to the training field to find him. Unexpectedly, Wu Cheng said that kissing her was just a trivial matter. Luo Na immediately scolded him, teaching him proper manners. She wouldn't lie. Wu Cheng knew why she was angry, why she didn't care about herself. Thinking about it, a corner of his mouth couldn't help but curl up. However, he also apologized to Luo Na and said that he really liked her. Before he could finish his sentence, Luo Na cut him off. She said she would treat this as a case of a young man experiencing hormonal imbalance and momentarily being overcome with emotion. But Wu Cheng knew he didn't have a sudden liking for her. But Luo Na left without listening to his explanation. At night, Wu Cheng couldn't sleep, so he deliberately woke Mao Qi up to ask a few questions. The next day, Luo Na and Wu Zi were preparing to go back. Wu Cheng immediately dressed up and came to see them off. Xu Ji went aside to talk to Luo Na. She was with Zhang Tian, and she planned to stop competing after the National University Sports Meet. Then she would rent a small shop behind the school. Wu Cheng waited there for them to finish their conversation. Wu Zi, next to him, said he knew what the young man was thinking. After the two finished talking, Wu Cheng also pulled Luo Na to a secluded spot. Luo Na told him to train hard and not think about unnecessary things. Wu Cheng didn't say anything more, and promised that he would definitely secure a spot in the upcoming national games. In the car, Luo Na and Wu Zi talked about Jiang Tian dating Zhu Ji, and their plans to open a shop near the school. She knew the rent wasn't cheap, and the two of them weren't doing well financially. She knew that Wu Zi had a friend who did interior design, and she wanted to ask for help. But Wu Zi persuaded her to worry about her graduation, before worrying about other people's matters. However, he also knew that no matter how much she said, it was pointless. That afternoon, Wu Zi asked Luo Na to go home with him to visit his family. Luo Na went home with Wu Zi to see Coach Wang. He wasn't Wu Zi's real father, but he always treated Wu Zi like his own son. Coach Wang was lying in a rocking chair, motionless, and didn't react to anything Luo Na said. 2 years ago, he was in good condition, but now things were getting worse. The doctor had no choice but to let the patient live in a good environment, and the tumor would progress more slowly. Wu Zi told Luo Na about something no one knew. He used to depend on his grandmother, and after she passed away, Coach Wang took him in and took care of him. He took him to train in sports, then study and attend university. Later, the national team came to recruit people and nominated Wu Zi. However, Coach Wang didn't come to see him off at that time, and later Wu Zi wrote about how Coach Wang went to the hospital for a checkup and learned that he had a cerebral aneurysm. The risk of a brain hemorrhage could occur at any time. The surgery cost over 100,000 yuan, which was very expensive, but even after using all his teacher's funeral money, it was barely enough. The surgery date was set. Everything was ready for surgery, but he learned that Wu Zi had hit the referee during the match. Coach Wang was afraid that he would be expelled from school, so he took him to apologize. But the referee, as soon as he opened his mouth, demanded 100,000 yuan in compensation. Coach Wang directly gave them the money he had saved for his surgery. Later, he suffered a brain hemorrhage and ended up in his current condition. After hearing those words, Coach Wang grabbed her hand. He clearly reacted to what they said. Luo Na didn't expect Wu Zi to keep this a secret for so long. Luo Na was chatting with Jiang Tian, while Wu Cheng was chatting with Han Shuji on the other side. Jiang Tian was surprised to learn that Han Shuji was planning to retire. After all, she was talented and could have been on the national team. Han Shuji was also worried that if Jiang Tian knew she was retiring, she might break up with him because of this. Wu Cheng emotionally said that if it were Jiang Tian, she wouldn't break up. Compromise is love, and supporting each other's dreams is also a way to express feelings. Wu Zi came over, and Jiang Tian, a little scared, quickly left. Wu Cheng sent Luo Na a message. Wu Zi saw a smile on Luo Na's lips, and guessed she was reading Wu Cheng's message. She didn't hide it. Soon after, the athletes gathered their spirits and prepared to compete. Luo Na promised to meet with Wu Cheng, but Mao Qi disappeared that day. Wu Cheng called him, but he hurriedly said a few words and hung up the phone. In desperation, Wu Cheng decided to stay and wait for Mao Qi first. He would then take the earliest flight to meet up with the team tomorrow. Coach Wang's illness recurred. As soon as Luo Na learned about it, she went to the hospital to help. Wu Zi heard the news from the doctor and sat down, lost like a ghost in the world. It took a lot of effort, but Wu Cheng finally made it to Mao Qi's house. After some persuasion and scolding, Mao Qi finally agreed to return to continue the competition. Wu Cheng then called Luo Na, but she was busy and couldn't answer the phone. At dawn the next day, she received another call saying that Coach Wang had passed away and had been temporarily taken to the morgue. Luo Na held the death certificate in her hand and spoke on the phone to Wu Cheng, telling him to play well. She didn't have any other instructions for the others. On the first day of the competition, also the day Coach Wang passed away, Luo Na went to help Wu Zi handle the funeral arrangements and didn't care about watching the competition. Wu Cheng asked Han Shuji to record a video. After completing all the competition events, he collapsed from exhaustion. The big screen displayed the ranking of the men's decathlon. Wu Cheng had won 7th place in the country. He had only changed disciplines 2 months ago, but had already achieved over 6,300 points. This wasn't easy at all. Han Shuji praised Wu Cheng, but he was very humble. However, this humility attracted the cold words of Li Qi, who walked by. Wu Zi packed Coach Wang's belongings, and when he saw a photo of himself and his teacher together, he cried bitterly. Luo Na hugged him to comfort him. Wu Zi looked up and met her gaze. He wanted to kiss her lips, but Luo Na refused. Wu Zi stopped his actions and thoughts, muttered a word and went outside. Wu Cheng sent Luo Na a selfie of himself. She zoomed in and looked at it, smiling happily. A moment later, she suddenly woke up and told her little bear that she couldn't break her principles just because someone was young and handsome. She wanted to hypnotize herself to no longer be infatuated with him, but no matter what reason, it wouldn't make sense. Wu Cheng called Luo Na. His competition was over, and he was currently at the airport. He would be back to school in 3 hours. Soon after, she saw Wu Cheng standing right in front of her. He lied, saying he had sneaked back earlier, making Luo Na worried. Finally, Wu Cheng admitted that he had taken a leave of absence before boarding the plane and was hungry. Luo Na took him to Jiang Tian's noodle shop. This time back, Wu Cheng brought her a gift, a video on his camera. It was a unique gift. Wu Cheng felt that Luo Na would want to watch the video when she had free time. While eating noodles, he asked her why she didn't come to watch him compete. Before she could answer, a phone call came in and pulled her away. After Luo Na went out to answer the phone, Jiang Tian came up to Wu Cheng and told him that Wu Zi and Luo Na had been dating for a long time, reminding him not to flirt with other people. Wu Cheng naturally didn't believe it. Even if they were holding hands, it didn't mean they were together. On the way back, Wu Cheng boldly told Luo Na that if she wasn't dating Wu Zi, he could pursue her. But if they were really dating, he wouldn't mind stealing her away. That night, Luo Na sat down to watch Wu Cheng's competition video. A smile spread across her lips. Mao Qi was indeed a talented high jumper. He stood out in the provincial games and was selected for the national team. Ming Zhao told him to train hard, hugged the young man, and cried, unable to bear the separation. Mao Qi was reluctant to leave Luo Na and Wu Cheng. He hugged one of them tightly with each hand, not wanting to let go. Wu Cheng could indirectly hug Luo Na, so he hugged her tightly and took the opportunity to hold her hands. As for the results of this competition, Luo Na had made a great contribution. On the other hand, Wu Zi's sprint team was heavily criticized by Kui Lin. His seed player, Huang Lin, had been injured before the competition. The people in the high jump team invited Mao Qi to eat noodles to support Jiang Tian's shop. Coincidentally, Hong Wen brought some people there that day. After Luo Na walked in, the guys on the other side started making trouble. Jiang Tian couldn't stand to hear them insult Xu Ji, so he beat them up. The two sides rushed into a brawl. Luo Na tried to persuade them to stop. Hong Wen picked up a wine bottle and was about to smash it towards her. Wu Cheng immediately ran over, grabbed the bottle, and taught him a lesson. Xu Ji picked up her phone and called the police. Hong Wen and his group of thugs ran away, leaving behind a mess. Wu Cheng used his 100-meter sprint speed to catch one of them. Wu Zi then captured Hong Wen. Zhu Ji took Jiang Tian, whose head was bleeding, to the hospital. Wu Cheng went to the hospital as well. Luo Na couldn't help but scold Wu Cheng, but he simply thought he was protecting her. Even if his sports career was ruined, it was worth it. Back inside, Hong Wen insisted that they didn't start the fight and were beaten up first. Wu Zi, with a headache, presented evidence and invited them to take a walk around the police station or pay compensation for the damage they caused. The cost was estimated to be over 30,000 yuan. Hong Wen's group said they didn't have money, but they had a head that liked to get into trouble. Wu Zi then took the initiative to deal with this thug. He called Wu Cheng and Li Ji out. Wu Zi asked Li Ji and Wu Cheng to run a 100-meter race. If he could beat Wu Cheng, Wu Zi would help him pay off the compensation. If he couldn't win, he would have to follow Wu Zi's arrangements. Luo Na looked at Li Ji's physique and strength and knew Wu Zi really liked the boy. She was curious to see how his 100-meter speed was. Wu Cheng couldn't stand to see Luo Na look like that, so he shouted at the boy to get on the track quickly. At the same time, Luo Na had to promise him a condition, or he wouldn't race against Li Ji. Faced with this dilemma, Luo Na could only nod in agreement. Li Ji lost the first time, but he didn't accept the result and demanded a rematch. But after running 10 races, he only lost and lost even more miserably. In the end, Li Ji was too exhausted to move, while Wu Cheng still had plenty of energy. Kui Lin told Wu Zi and Luo Na that they should stay away from violent fights like yesterday, especially Wu Cheng. Recently, he has been progressing very quickly. and in the eyes of Kui Lin, Wu Cheng is the most promising athlete in the group and could join the national team. Kui Lin asked Wu Zi to go out first and then talk to Luo Na privately. He hoped that she would pay more attention to Wu Cheng, do some ideological work for him, and ensure that his family allows him to participate in the national track and field championships. He also allowed Wu Cheng to participate in the school's closed training program. Luo Na reluctantly agreed. On the other hand, a teacher from the department persuaded Wu Cheng to give up physical education and focus on his studies. Wu Cheng explained his reasons, which left the teacher speechless. Luo Na invited Wu Cheng to go out, but he took her to the beach. Luo Na said that there would be no results between them. Wu Cheng insisted on asking why, but Luo Na remained silent. Wu Cheng was not convinced at all. Only then did Luo Na lie and say that she had a boyfriend, who was none other than Wu Zi. Wu Cheng still didn't believe it, and wanted to call Wu Zi to verify. When Luo Na grabbed his phone, she realized she had been tricked. Wu Cheng didn't have Wu Zi's number. He asked her who she liked more, and Luo Na didn't hesitate to say Wu Zi's name. How could Wu Cheng believe that? He looked into her eyes and knew she was lying. Luo Na, naturally, dared not look directly into Wu Cheng's eyes. She then left angrily without reason. Wu Cheng hesitated for a while, before resolutely getting up to chase after Luo Na. But seeing that she had already gotten on the bus and didn't pay attention to him, he quickly ran to the next bus stop, got on the bus, and asked her why she was running away. Luo Na came up with a very unreasonable excuse. Anyone who heard it knew she was lying. But Wu Cheng couldn't argue with Luo Na. He had to obey her and stay far away from her. As a result, they were like two ends of a river, drinking from the same stream of water in the flowing grass. Later, Wu Cheng told Kui Lin that his parents didn't allow him to participate in the closed training program. So he asked Luo Na to go home with Wu Cheng during the New Year's holiday and do some ideological work to convince his parents. Luo Na reluctantly agreed. After reading Wu Cheng's message, she still had to agree to Kui Lin. Wu Cheng went to the dormitory to find Luo Na. She quickly cleaned up the mess in her room, but unexpectedly, her underwear fell to the ground. When Wu Cheng walked in, Luo Na quickly hid the garment in her clothes. Wu Cheng came today because he wanted to go home with her to meet her parents. Hearing this, Luo Na was so nervous that she imagined the scene of meeting her future in-laws. Wu Cheng also secretly smiled because he knew what she was thinking. Then they agreed to buy gifts for her parents. But because Wu Cheng kept nagging, Luo Na pulled him outside. As she dragged him, it fell out. The two were silent for a long time. Wu Cheng shyly covered his eyes and went outside. Luo Na was embarrassed once again, and her face flushed red. Wu Zi pondered for several hours before finally convincing Kui Lin to allow Li Ji to join Wu Zi's sprint team, but on the condition that he write a letter of guarantee. When Li Ji learned that he was going to join the track and field team, he refused. Wu Zi gently pointed out the payment bill and asked him to return the money and then do whatever he wanted. Li Ji had no money to his name, so he asked Wu Zi to give him 6 months to collect the money. Wu Zi used a strategy to motivate him, encouraging him to immediately join the track and field team. Luo Na and Wu Zi went to eat crayfish together. Wu Cheng saw them by chance and stared at them with resentment for a while before leaving. Luo Na breathed a sigh of relief. Then Wu Cheng sent her a message. It turned out that she really had a prior appointment. He said, "You might as well have just lied to me." Luo Na went boating with Wu Cheng, but she realized that she had lost her ID card and had to go back to the restaurant to look for it. Luo Na urged Wu Cheng to quickly get on the boat while she walked ahead. Suddenly, a hair clip fell down. Wu Cheng saw her from behind. She was beautiful, right down to the core. He told her that she would definitely like the sea in his hometown. As night fell, Luo Na and Wu Cheng returned home, but his parents weren't there. Luo Na was hungry, so Wu Cheng cooked noodles for her. The taste was pretty good. Then, Wu Cheng took her to his room for a quick look around. He would clean up Luo Na's room tonight. This was probably the first time they were living under the same roof, so they both felt a little awkward. But thankfully, the night passed quickly. The next morning when Luo Na woke up, Wu Cheng had prepared breakfast for her outside, as well as a sightseeing plan for his hand-drawn island. Wu Cheng was waiting for her at the end of the road. Luo Na hopped on the bicycle and began exploring the island. Then, following the instructions on the drawing, she found the place Wu Cheng had marked. As soon as she arrived, she saw him emerging from the sea in his diving suit. He had his back to the light and radiated a youthful glow. Wu Cheng came ashore, his hand clutching something. He asked Luo Na to guess which hand it was in. Luo Na opened her right hand, revealing a beautiful pink pearl that sparkled in the sunlight. Luo Na couldn't help but smile as she held the pearl. Wu Cheng looked at her, his emotions overwhelming him, and he couldn't help but steal a kiss. Luo Na was surprised, but didn't resist. Not resisting was acceptance. Wu Cheng gave her a passionate and intoxicating kiss. Luo Na then ate some snails, regretted it, and left angrily. Wu Cheng felt that it wasn't a big deal for an athlete to love their coach. He ordered food for her, and finally, Luo Na admitted that she liked him, just as he liked her. She wasn't a machine. Since they had kissed, they would simply be together. But she had a condition. Wu Cheng liked her very much, so he agreed to everything. Luo Na said that if she felt their relationship was affecting Wu Cheng's development, they would break up. She would also leave the school after she graduated with her master's degree. Just as she finished speaking, Wu Cheng's parents returned. His father's name was Duan Dao, and his mother's name was Jia Qi. Wu Cheng's mother had met Luo Na before, so she was very familiar with her and said she considered her like a sister. The two sat down and started talking. Luo Na thought that Wu Cheng was very talented in sports. If he wanted to develop in this field, he might have to take a long break from school. But the school would keep his academic records for him. Jia Qi didn't want her son to train in sports. His grades were very good. Duan Tao, though busy in the kitchen, also wanted to say a few words to support his son's passion. But he was eventually gently chased away by Jia Qi. Jia Qi took Luo Na outside for a stroll. She specifically didn't let Wu Cheng follow them. Wu Cheng's mother suddenly became quiet and sharp, sharing her son's childhood with Luo Na. After walking around for a while, they returned for dinner. Duan Tao's cooking was delicious, and they ate happily. After eating their fill, Wu Cheng pulled Luo Na outside and said he wanted to go for a run. The two of them walked on the beach and chatted. Actually, Wu Cheng didn't know when he had fallen for Luo Na. But as long as she was by his side, he was truly happy. So Wu Cheng always wanted to get her attention, and perhaps the feeling of liking turned into love fermented in such circumstances. The island trip was over. Luo Na took the earliest boat back the next day. Wu Cheng reluctantly saw her off. After the boat left the dock, Wu Cheng also ran to the shore near her, shouting 3 heartwarming and emotional words. Luo Na heard him, equally moved, and her tears and snot flowed like a volcano. After seeing Luo Na off, Wu Cheng went home. His parents were already waiting for him with serious expressions. They had long suspected that there was something going on between Wu Cheng and Luo Na. Wu Cheng didn't hide it either. He frankly stated that he and Luo Na had made a decision about their relationship. Jia Qi was furious and disagreed with her son and Luo Na being together, mainly because of the significant age gap between the two. Duan Tao didn't want his son to break up with Luo Na. His attitude was completely different from Jia Qi's. Wu Cheng also added that if his mother went to find Luo Na because of this, he would definitely turn against her. Duan Tao thought that his son was grown up and knew how to think for himself, so there was no need to interfere much. As soon as Luo Na returned to school, she saw Wu Zi walking past with a gloomy expression. He seemed not to see or notice her greeting. Luo Na turned around to catch up and learned that Li Ji had escaped from the training camp, which made Wu Zi extremely angry. He was about to go and bring him back, but Luo Na was worried that his appearance would cause trouble, so she went with him to find Li Ji. They eventually found Li Ji in a dark internet cafe. Wu Zi wanted to go up and grab him, but Luo Na stopped him. The game Li Ji was playing was exactly Wu Zi's specialty. So Luo Na convinced Wu Zi to challenge Li Ji and make him lose miserably. And as expected, Li Ji lost several rounds. When he got up, he saw Wu Zi and Luo Na across from him. Seeing this, Li Ji immediately ran away, but how could he escape his coach? Wu Zi basically didn't want to fight, but who knew Li Ji was so vicious? Wu Zi had no choice but to take action to subdue him. By the time Luo Na arrived, she saw Li Ji lying on the ground, unable to move. On the way back to school, Li Ji kept spewing out provocative insults towards Wu Zi, making the coach unable to bear it. He angrily slammed on the brakes, unbuckled his seatbelt, and walked back. Luo Na then took Li Ji back to school. Li Ji was at a rebellious age and wouldn't listen. He He didn't even bother listening to what Luo Na said. After returning to the dormitory, Wu Cheng was still at home. Finally, he contacted Luo Na. Just one day later, Wu Cheng thought she had forgotten about her boyfriend. Because he couldn't contact her, he packed his things and prepared to return to school to find her. In the end, under Luo Na's persuasion, he gave up the idea of returning to school early. On New Year's Eve, Wu Zi and Luo Na were enjoying a hot pot together at a restaurant when they received a call from Kui Lin. The principal told them to send best wishes to the team members for the new year. Although the name wasn't specified, the person Kui Lin was referring to was definitely Li Ji. Soon after, Luo Na went out with Wu Zi to buy some wine and returned to celebrate the new year. Wu Cheng sent Luo Na a photo of himself. As soon as she saw her boyfriend's face, the corners of her mouth curled up into a smile. Then, they quickly connected their phones and chatted. She was currently outside a convenience store, so it was a little noisy. They chatted happily. Wu Zi stood behind, watching, filled with regret and remorse. After a while, Wu Cheng called a video call, showing her a unique firework display by the beach, which touched Luo Na deeply. After the winter break, Hunan University opened a new semester. As soon as Wu Cheng returned to school, he saw Li Ji treating Luo Na terribly. He immediately stepped forward to protect her. After being pulled away by Luo Na, Li Ji disappeared. Luo Na pulled Wu Cheng aside to talk. She inquired after Wu Cheng, and he gave her a bag full of gifts and a love letter. Luo Na asked Wu Cheng to focus on training and not think about useless things. He was a little annoyed, always feeling that she was treating him differently than when they were on the island. Later, while Wu Cheng was running, Luo Na took out the love letter he had written. The more she read, the more touched she became. And finally, she was overcome with emotion, and tears streamed down her face. Li Ji guessed that Wu Cheng and Luo Na were together. He often talked about it, which made Wu Cheng's blood boil. Li Ji whispered that he hadn't actually been targeting Wu Cheng, but now they could become good brothers. Li Ji added that on New Year's Eve, Luo Na and Wu Zi talked until midnight. Wu Cheng didn't believe it, and didn't want to form an alliance with Li Ji. He advised him to stop stirring up trouble because it wouldn't lead to anything good. Seeing Luo Na and Wu Zi walking together and smiling at each other, although Wu Cheng felt uncomfortable, his reason prevailed, and he didn't show it. During the meal, Luo Na sat with Wu Zi once again, while Wu Cheng could only sit with Li Ji. Li Ji was sitting next to him, talking. Wu Cheng just learned that Wu Zi and Luo Na lived in the same building, one floor above the other. This made the 20-year-old boy extremely jealous. When Wu Zi left, Wu Cheng hurriedly ran over and asked why Li Ji was allowed to live in the same dormitory as Wu Zi. Luo Na simply explained, and Wu Cheng reluctantly accepted this reason. Later, Luo Na and Kochiang Jin walked over together. Wu Cheng quickly stuffed a box of yogurt into Luo Na's hand and then ran away quickly. She was a little embarrassed and explained that she had asked him to help make yogurt. Kochiang Jin didn't care much about this matter. He immediately said that Wu Cheng was a good C for comprehensive training. After Kui Lin announced the discipline and rules during the closed training, he gave them the afternoon off for leisure. The crowd dispersed, and as Wu Zi and Luo Na were sitting in a milk tea shop, they heard from some members that the high jump team and the sprint team were at the swimming pool, competing in deep diving. The two immediately ran over. Wu Zi shouted loudly for them to stop, but Li Ji and Wu Cheng jumped down without warning. Wu Zi was so angry that he directly kicked Li Ji back into the water. Luo Na threw a towel at Wu Cheng. Obviously, she was also very angry. Back in the dormitory, Wu Cheng sincerely apologized to Luo Na and also coaxed her well. But Li Ji wasn't like that. He and Wu Zi couldn't stand to see each other and directly slept on the high jump mat that night instead of returning to the dormitory. The next day, Li Ji caught a cold. Wu Zi, as his coach, was very serious about taking care of him. Seeing this, Wu Cheng also pretended to be sick. Luo Na told him to wait for her in the dormitory, and then brought him medicine to drink. The two of them talked about Li Chu, then compared the percentage of female athletes who won more gold medals than male athletes. Wu Cheng stubbornly tried to defend the male students, but he couldn't make any sense. His silly appearance made Luo Na laugh happily. Luo Na went to deliver towels to the team members who were training. Wu Cheng wanted to go to the dormitory to cook dumplings. Li Ji, who had ears like a dog, immediately lit up. The whole group also wanted to go to the coach's dormitory to eat dumplings. Wu Cheng's plan was ruined, so he pretended to be protective of the coach and said he needed to rest. He whispered that they could go another time. That night, Luo Na cooked a lot of dumplings and brought them to everyone. Lu Shan ran to Huang Lin's dormitory to ask for dumplings. At this moment, only 2 people were left in the room. Luo Na specifically made seafood dumplings for Wu Cheng. The 2 of them fed each other lovingly. Early in the morning, Luo Na was awakened by a loud noise. It turned out that Wu Zi was forcing Li Ji to take medicine, but the 2 of them were making a fuss as if they were causing chaos in heaven. Li Ji kicked Wu Zi hard and injured his lower back. Luo Na took him to her dormitory to apply medicine. Before leaving, Wu Zi carefully locked the door tightly. Talking to Luo Na, Wu Zi learned that she and Wu Cheng were officially dating. He had no objection as long as she liked him. Luo Na let Wu Zi stay alone, but unexpectedly, while he was heartbroken, he was mocked by Li Ji. He couldn't open the main door, so he decided to jump out the window and climb the water pipe. Wu Zi sighed, saying Li Ji was the retribution for his life. That night, Luo Na had dinner with Wu Cheng, something she rarely did. She felt that the relationship between Li Ji and Wu Zi was missing a connection. If they were all as well behaved as Wu Cheng, it would be so much better. Li Ji was confined for 10 days and finally got a half-day break. Wu Zi was worried that he would go out and cause trouble again, so he didn't allow him to go out. Li Ji caused a ruckus, which softened Luo Na's heart. She gave him 2 options. 1. Go with the coach. Or 2. Go with another athlete. In the end, Li Ji compromised and went out for fun with Wu Cheng and Lu Shan. The 3 of them went for a walk on a beach and saw an off-road vehicle rental nearby. Li Ji looked at the owner's hand and thought the rental fee was 50 yuan, which felt incredibly cheap, so he asked Wu Cheng for a loan. The 3 of them drove around the beach, full of the lively joy of youth. After 20 minutes, the 3 returned the vehicle. The owner saw that they were young, so he said that the rental fee was 500 yuan. He suddenly raised the price 10 times. The total cost was 1,500 yuan for the 3 of them. Wu Cheng didn't want to cause trouble, and he was about to scan the QR code to pay, but Li Ji refused to yield. He jumped into a fight with the owner. This owner wasn't easy to deal with, and he quickly called his brothers over. Wu Cheng and Lu Shan finally managed to pull Li Ji away. But before they could go far, the owner's men drove over. Knowing they couldn't escape, Wu Cheng told Lu Shan to return to the car and call Wu Zi first, and then the other 2 ran for their lives. However, they were still caught by the gangsters. The 2 were pressed against the sand, and as soon as they opened their mouths, they were yelled at by the thugs demanding 50 yuan in compensation. Li Ji's mouth was still very hard, and the leader of the group slapped him a few times. Wu Zi received a call from Lu Shan. He told Luo Na that he had to go and greet a new friend who had come to visit. They were adamant about getting 50,000 yuan, but naturally, Wu Zi couldn't come up with such a large amount of money. But he still took out his wallet and gave it all to the owner. But they still wouldn't listen. Wu Zi found 2 empty beer bottles on the beach and smashed them on his own head. Blood started to flow, and the thugs were frightened and let it go. Wu Zi managed to bring Wu Cheng and Li Ji back safely. Then Wu Cheng took Lu Shan back to school, and he and Li Ji took Wu Zi to the hospital for a checkup. After the bandage was applied, the doctor said it wasn't a serious problem, so they could go home feeling relieved. Wu Zi suddenly called Wu Cheng, telling him not to disappoint Luo Na. After the incident, Li Ji suddenly changed his attitude. He actively assured Wu Zi that he would definitely win first place. Wu Cheng also thought about Wu Zi's words. He seriously told Luo Na that he wanted to win first place. Not only that, but he also wanted to become a world champion. Then Li Ji started training with Wu Cheng. Luo Na saw the wound on Wu Zi's head, and saw that Li Ji also had a wound on his face. She guessed that the 2 of them had fought. Wu Zi didn't explain, and let her assume that. There are some things that are best not to let her know. After hard training, Wu Cheng achieved a score of 7,100 and was given a rare 2-day break. Wu Cheng wanted to be encouraged and rewarded, so he invited Luo Na to go out. He prepared meticulously for this trip. He read all of her social media before their date and wrote down everything she liked. He didn't want to waste a single moment with his girlfriend. The 2 of them ate at a restaurant with a wonderful atmosphere. After eating, they spent a romantic night in a 5-star hotel room. The next morning when they woke up, Wu Cheng was still asleep beside her. Luo Na turned her head and saw breakfast. She felt extremely happy. It turned out that Wu Cheng had secretly gotten up early to make breakfast for her. Their relationship grew closer and closer. They acted like a newlywed couple, and the atmosphere became sweet. Kui Lin received a message from Jia Qi. She asked him how he wanted to resolve the issue between Luo Na and Wu Cheng. He immediately understood that the relationship between Luo Na and Wu Cheng wasn't as simple as he thought. Principal Kui Lin became very angry. Kui Lin couldn't find Luo Na and Wu Cheng, so he went directly to Wu Zi and forced him to tell him their whereabouts. Wu Zi said nothing and quickly ran away. Li Jie told Wu Zi that in fact, he wasn't inferior to Wu Cheng. If Principal Kui Lin insisted on separating the lovers, then he should step in and fill the gap. Otherwise, Wu Zi would no longer have any chance to pursue her. Although Wu Zi wasn't good at expressing his emotions before, he always respected Luo Na and didn't want to pursue her in this way. Later, Luo Na and Wu Cheng returned to school. Wu Zi told Luo Na that Kui Lin knew about her relationship with Wu Cheng. Even though Principal Kui Lin was old-fashioned, Luo Na still felt that she could convince him. If it didn't work the first time, she would try again. If it didn't work the second time, she would try 7, 8, 9, 10 times. She would keep trying. Lu Shan also knew that Luo Na and Wu Cheng were together. He joked, laughing, that Wu Cheng was really good. He seemed so naive and clumsy, but he managed to win Luo Na over without anyone knowing. Seeing Lu Shan holding an English book, he asked him about it. It turned out that Lu Shan's closed training results weren't very good, so he decided to take the postgraduate entrance exam. Kui Lin called Luo Na to his office to talk. He said he didn't actually object to them being together, but the national team really liked Wu Cheng. So, he shouldn't be distracted at this time. Kui Lin asked Luo Na to solve the problem. Luo Na said that if Wu Cheng couldn't break through the 7,400 point mark in the competition within 10 days, she would break up with Wu Cheng. At the same time, she would complete her thesis and leave school immediately after graduating. Lana felt a little regretful later. She should have only reported 7,300 points. But the words were out, and she could only hope that Wu Cheng could break through 7,400 points. When she left Qilin's office, Wu Cheng was waiting for her outside the training field. Lana told Wu Cheng not to forget about practicing for the competition, and then they agreed to go out to eat. Lana asked Coach Yang Jin for his opinion, and he thought Wu Cheng could score 7,200 points in the upcoming competition. Hearing this, Lana became even more regretful, and immediately called Qilin to see if she could reduce the score she reported from 7,400 to 7,200. Qilin found it funny, and told her that if she had the energy, she should think about how to explain it to Wu Cheng's parents. Wu Cheng tried to create a distance between himself and the others in the high jump, but this backfired completely. His jump failed, and Wu Cheng, unable to control his anger, lashed out at her. But Lan Na didn't get angry. She gently hugged him and whispered words of comfort. Then she specially invited him to the dormitory that night, and said she would give him some personal guidance on the high jump. The remaining 10 days of preparation flew by, and the day of the National Athletics Championships was approaching. This competition was held in Zhangzhou. Lan Na arrived in Zhangzhou with Wu Ji and Li Jie. Wu Cheng and Coach Yang Jin had been there for a while. After checking into the hotel, Lan Na swiped her card to enter her room. Wu Cheng suddenly appeared trying to scare her, but Lan Na wasn't afraid at all. After talking for a while, Wu Cheng honestly went back to his room and went to sleep. The next morning, Lan Na woke up early and went downstairs for breakfast. Wu Cheng was having breakfast with Coach Yang Jin, and he greeted Lan Na warmly. Taking advantage of the fact that Coach Yang Jin wasn't paying attention, he secretly touched Lan Na's hand. She pinched him, causing him to cry out in pain. This morning, Li Jie had a competition. Maybe it was due to nerves or anxiety, but he kept going to the bathroom. As soon as he sat down to eat breakfast with Wu Jie and Lan Na, his stomach growled again, and he ran back to the bathroom to deal with it. Lan Na was worried that he would be going to the bathroom during the competition. Hearing this, Wu Shi immediately put down his plate, his appetite completely gone. The competition started early. Wu Cheng stared intently at Li Qiu, his strongest opponent. Zhang Ba said that Li Qiu was the grandson of Coach Nu. One of the combined events for men was the sprint. The race took place amid a lot of cheers. Wu Cheng and Li Qiu were neck and neck, but Li Qiu, with his experience, took a slight lead. The next events were high jump, long jump, and others. Wu Cheng played very well. During the competition, he was temporarily in the lead with a score of 1,540. Not willing to lose, Li Qiu easily caught up to Yu Cheng and left him behind. Lan Na was so happy, she almost jumped up. Wu Ji said that with Yu Cheng's current performance, he had an 80-90 chance of making the national team. Next was Yu Cheng's high jump. He jumped 2.2 meters. The cheers at the stadium erupted once again. Lan Na in the stands was so moved that she shed tears. Even though he performed well, Yu Cheng was a little unhappy because he didn't run well in the final stretch of the 400-meter race. His strengths were in the events of the first day, but now the point difference between him and Li Qiu was less than 50 points. Coach Yang Jin was surprised to learn that Yu Cheng wanted to win the gold medal. This time, Xiu Ji also came. In the evening, she chatted with Lan Na in her room. She was surprised to learn that Lan Na and Yu Cheng were together. The next day was the men's sprint, and Li Ji lived up to Wu Ji's expectations, winning the first gold medal for Hunan University with a time of 10.29 seconds. Wu Ji was so happy, he cried. This was the result of his hard work and a reward Li Ji gave him. Jia Qi came to the stands and asked Lan Na to meet her privately. Yu Cheng saw Lan Na and her mother on the big screen, and he couldn't help but think about it. After the javelin throw, Yu Cheng interrupted the conversation between Lan Na and her mother. He was then scolded by Lan Na and sent back to compete. Lan Na followed him out to sea, and looking at Yu Cheng's javelin throw result on the big screen, she felt he performed pretty well. Because of Lan Na's requirement to reach 7,400 points, Yu Cheng had trained very hard for the final endurance race, but this was not his strong point. To achieve a score of 7,400, he had to run 1,500 meters in 4 minutes. However, his best previous training result was only 4 minutes and 20 seconds. The final result was Yu Cheng's total score of 7,375 points. He was really upset to see that he was only 25 points short. However, Coach Yang Jin was very happy with the result. Yu Cheng also didn't show any flaws in his interview with the reporters, but he seemed a little absent-minded. Later, Yu Cheng went to see Lan Na and asked her if the words she said about breaking up if he didn't reach 7,400 points were true. Of course, Lan Na admitted that it was true. Jia Qi suddenly came to find Lan Na. Yu Cheng guessed that Principal Wang must have known about this. However, he was still very excited and couldn't help but kiss her. Unexpectedly, Coach Yang Jin saw this scene. He looked at them with wide eyes, unable to believe it. Then, Lan Na and Yu Cheng were persuaded to break up by Yang Jin and Jia Qi respectively, but they both remained steadfast. Yu Cheng's father arrived and took Jia Qi home. He told his son that if he decided to be with her, he had to be responsible for her. As soon as he saw his parents off, Yu Cheng ran to Lan Na's hotel door and asked her if she had given up and backed down. Of course, Lan Na hadn't. Once she had made up her mind about this relationship, she was determined to be responsible for him. As they were boiling eggs on the bed, Coach Yang Jin knocked on the door and asked if Yu Cheng was there. Lan Na pretended not to know, but when she heard that the national team coach wanted to see Yu Cheng, she quickly got up and opened the door, pushing Yu Cheng out to meet him. After meeting with the national team coach, Yu Cheng returned to Lan Na's room. As soon as he entered, he hugged her and tried to kiss her. Lan Na pushed him away and asked what the national team coach had asked. Yu Cheng honestly said that they wanted him on the team and had personally asked for his opinion. But knowing that he could only bring one coach, Yu Cheng was a little hesitant. Yang Jin was his main coach. If he wanted to bring someone with him, it could only be him. But that would mean he would have to be in a long-distance relationship with Lan Na. The more Yu Cheng thought about it, the more uncomfortable he felt. Lan Na, on the other hand, had matured. She wanted to put Yu Cheng's future first, so even if it meant a long-distance relationship, it wouldn't be a problem. That night, Yu Cheng packed his things and moved into Lan Na's room. He told Coach Yang Jin that he could call him anytime if anything happened. Yu Cheng had some dirty intentions, but when Lan Na came out of the bathroom, he had already fallen asleep. He must have been very tired after today's competition. Lan Na gently lay down on the bed and slept beside him, not disturbing him. Qilin gave Lan Na some information and asked her to fill out the relevant information about Yu Cheng. During the short interview that Yu Cheng agreed to do after the competition, the video was posted on social media. Unexpectedly, the interview became very popular, and the agency was very impressed with Yu Cheng. Before he got the results, there were already reporters eager to interview him. Lana took him to the training room and told him to behave well in front of the reporters. Then, Yu Cheng discovered that this was not a real interview at all. It was actually an attempt to persuade Yu Cheng to find a sports manager and join their team. Yu Cheng immediately refused and ran to Lana, pulling her away. Because he would soon be going to train with the national team and would be separated from Lana, Yu Cheng was very worried that the distance would cause their relationship to decline. So, he occasionally proposed to Lana. She still refused. Yu Cheng backed down and said that if they couldn't get married, they could get engaged. But Lana still refused, and clearly stated that it was inappropriate. Lee Ji was also selected for the national team, and athletes were allowed to bring one coach with them. But Wu Ji didn't want to go with Lee Ji. He made a scene again, refusing to sign the form. Wu Ji wanted to scream and cry. He grabbed Lee Ji by the collar and wanted to scold him, but Lana stopped him. She told Wu Ji to go out first so she could persuade Lee Ji with Yu Cheng. After Lana talked to him, Lee Ji understood why Wu Ji didn't want to go to the national team with him. Even though Wu Ji was doing it for his own good, Lee Ji was still very sad. Even if he won a gold medal there, what was the point if Wu Ji wasn't his coach? When the four of them were eating hot pot together, Lee Ji suddenly said that he could agree to join the national team. But could Lana give Wu Ji another chance? The other three knew what Lee Ji meant, but Lana couldn't answer, and found an excuse to change the topic. This time, both Yu Cheng and Lee Ji were selected for the national team. Lana told Yu Cheng to train hard and look after Lee Ji. Yu Cheng reassured her that he would take good care of Lee Ji. Soon after, Wu Ji and Lana saw off the two athletes at the airport. Yu Cheng and Lana reluctantly didn't want to leave, and Wu Ji didn't want to watch them say goodbye, so he looked away. The two watched as Yu Cheng and Lee Ji went through security. Wu Ji suddenly said it felt like he had just married his daughter off. Lana felt a little strange and looked at him. Then Wu Ji quickly salvaged the situation by pointing at Lee Ji and explaining that he meant him. The intensity of training at the national team was incomparable to that at school. After a week of high-intensity training, Lee Ji was exhausted. And the key is that he was still at the bottom of the team. Yu Cheng was in a similar situation, but he didn't care because being recruited here meant they were good. After finishing a few bites of food, Yu Cheng ran out to the field to call Lana and said that the base was very large, but there were not many people. Talking to Lana made him feel at peace. They said a few words to each other briefly before Lana had to go to a meeting with Principal Wang. So she ended the call with, "I love you," as requested by Yu Cheng. Yu Cheng's progress was obvious, and the team captain and coach were very confident in him. But Lee Qiu, standing next to him, had an angry face like he was about to explode. It was like he held a grudge against anyone. After being reminded by the team captain, Yu Cheng searched online and learned that he had a fan group. Of course, he didn't know any of the girls in it. When Lana found out and joked that she thought some of them were suitable for him, Yu Cheng was very worried and immediately said he didn't like anyone, only Lana. Lana stood up and told him to stop wandering around and focus on training. Besides them, there were Mao Qi and Xu Ji, all four of them from Hunan University. The coach negotiated with Li Chu and asked Yu Cheng to take Li Chu's place in shooting the promotional video. Yu Cheng initially didn't want to, fearing it would affect his training. But then he changed his mind after hearing the coach's words, which made sense. Plus, Lana also said that the coach taking him to shoot the video must have been measured and wouldn't delay his training. Yu Cheng obediently listened. After filming the commercial, he knew he would be staying out one night to finish the rest. That night, Yu Cheng didn't go out for dinner as the sponsor had invited him. When he returned to the hotel, he saw Lana standing there. It turned out she had come to see him because she was worried about him. The two of them spent a few short hours together. Lana couldn't stay with Yu Cheng that night because she had to catch an early flight back the next morning. Yu Cheng didn't want to be away from her, so he hugged her in the hotel lobby, but unexpectedly got photographed by the female reporter, Kai Yuan. During the press conference the next day, Kai Yuan stood up and asked some very sharp questions. As soon as she spoke, Yu Cheng knew she had bad intentions. Kai Yuan was also the one who had introduced him to that job opportunity before. After the press conference, she didn't let up, relentlessly hounding Yu Cheng and slandering Lana in front of him, trying to provoke the relationship between Yu Cheng and Lana. Kai Yuan grabbed Yu Cheng's hand and refused to let go. He was furious and swung his arm. Kai Yuan fell to the ground, and was helped up by Li Qiyu. Dissatisfied, Cai Yuan returned and posted pictures of Yu Cheng and Lan Na hugging on the internet, maliciously twisting the truth. Netizens, not knowing anything, went along with it, blaming Yu Cheng after only hearing one side of the story, deliberately insulting and slandering him. When Lan Na saw the comments online, she was like a volcano about to erupt. She wanted to find Cai Yuan and ask her to explain herself, but Qi Lin talked some senses into her. In the past few days, some small-time reporters had been caught sneaking around the school. They always kept an eye on Lan Na, so Wang Qilin asked her to keep a low profile and not give others any more information. Because of the impact of this incident, the team captain asked Li Chu to participate in the Asian Championships. Even though Yu Cheng tried his best to argue, the coach thought this issue had caused negative impacts and persuaded Yu Cheng to stay away from the spotlight and wait for things to pass. Yu Cheng had no choice but to pack his bags and leave the training base. Lan Na came to pick him up. Even though she didn't say anything, when they looked at each other, Lan Na felt that he was very upset and frustrated. So she hugged him. It was not just a hug, but a silent comfort. Lan Na took Yu Cheng to the beach to relax. Losing the opportunity to compete this time, it's easy to imagine how disappointed Yu Cheng was. Jia Qi, knowing the news, anxiously called her son, but he was not in the mood to answer the phone. Lan Na and her father, Le Shoudan, came up with a plan for Yu Cheng to go abroad to train and watch the world's top athletics competitions. However, this time he wouldn't be training for the decathlon anymore. He would switch to high jump. She believed that Yu Cheng would have a new breakthrough, but this still ultimately depended on Yu Cheng's own decision. He was very moved, and of course, he had no objections, but he needed to ask his parents at home. So they returned to the island. Seeing his son return, Jiaqi couldn't help but rush to hug him. Lan Na, standing aside, was a little worried because Jiaqi still had reservations about her. However, unexpectedly, Jiaqi hugged Lan Na too. That night, Lan Na slept at Yu Cheng's house. Watching her son busy taking care of Lan Na, Jiaqi could only sigh and accept the fact that her son truly liked this female coach. The next morning, Yu Cheng woke up early and went to Lan Na's room. Before she woke up, he was already lying on the bed, hugging the beautiful woman as she slept. When Lan Na fully woke up, Yu Cheng gave her a unique pearl necklace and talked about marriage. Lan Na also gave him a gift, but Yu Cheng didn't need those things. He only wanted Lan Na's earrings. He said that these earrings were like him and her. When he returned from abroad, the earrings would be paired together, and they would be reunited. That's how Lan Na stayed at Yu Cheng's house for a few days. As soon as they received the invitation, Lan Na started helping Yu Cheng pack his things. He needed to bring enough things for his close training abroad, but he didn't pay any attention to it. He was only concerned about what his future in-laws would think of him, and also about the sadness of being away from Lan Na. Yu Cheng specially prepared a surprise birthday party for Lan Na. Even though it wasn't her birthday today, he was eager to celebrate her birthday every year with her. And since he probably wouldn't be able to celebrate next year, he did it a year earlier. But Lan Na's birthday wish was not what he expected, and Yu Cheng lost his composure and angrily said that she only cared about competitions, not him. Lan Na could understand Yu Cheng's mood and got up to take his hand. Lan Na's living environment had made her used to saying goodbye since she was young, and she was used to putting on a happy face for everyone so that they wouldn't worry. She did the same with Yu Cheng, but she hadn't expected the sadness of parting to be so intense. Before Yu Cheng left, she had already started missing him crazily. Hearing what Lan Na said, Yu Cheng's anger disappeared. They each made a wish. Lan Na hoped that she could be happy with Yu Cheng for a lifetime. Yu Cheng wished that he would become Lan Na's greatest pride, a solid support for her. Soon after, Yu Cheng hurriedly flew abroad and went to Xiumin's house. Because Lan Na said Xiumin liked people who wore suits, Yu Cheng forced himself to dress up in a stylish suit for the first meeting. Before he even started jumping, his pants ripped loudly due to the stretching exercises. It seemed that Xiumin was very strict with Yu Cheng, but in reality, he wasn't angry at all. When Lan Na heard about Yu Cheng's embarrassing incident, she laughed at his misfortune. But her father was like that. If he didn't approve of this son-in-law, Lan Na would have to consider someone else. Yu Cheng interrupted and said he would never give her the chance. He wanted to talk more with Lan Na, but she was busy and hung up the phone. Yu Cheng, frustrated, threw himself onto the pillow and obediently went to sleep. Yu Cheng started a life that was the opposite of Lan Na's. When she was preparing to rest at night, It was morning for him, and he was preparing for training. However, the two still kept in touch frequently. One day, Yu Cheng was looking through Lana's social media account when he saw a photo of her with a young boy. So he sent a message asking her who it was. She replied that he was a freshman, and she had mentioned him to Yu Cheng many times before. He repeated Lana's words and tried to guess her tone, but this attracted Xiumin's attention. He watched and judged, feeling a little uncomfortable. With Yu Cheng using his break time to video call Lana, Xiumin got even angrier and directly took his phone away. Yu Cheng showed reluctance to train, so Xiumin gave him an ultimatum. If he didn't meet the training standards, he would never see Lana again. Lana knew that her father had confiscated Yu Cheng's phone and had a big fight with him through her smartphone. But his attitude was very resolute. If Yu Cheng couldn't meet his standards, he should get out as soon as possible. After all, he was the one who actively went abroad to train. Lana was angry too, but she couldn't deny it. In the end, when Yu Cheng borrowed a phone from someone to call her, Lana was very strict and told him not to contact her until he met the standards. And she hung up immediately after saying that. Yu Cheng tried to call back many times, but Lana kept rejecting him. After being ignored for a night, Yu Cheng was feeling moody. Lana seemed to imagine that, so she begged her mother to give Yu Cheng his phone to talk to her, and not let her father know. Yu Cheng's heart was healed. Finally, he regained his spirit and trained diligently. 3 months later, after a difficult training process, Yu Cheng finally got good results. He successfully jumped over a height of 2.25 meters. Xiumin smiled and returned Yu Cheng's phone. He immediately contacted Lana to share his boundless joy, and he also said that the coach would soon take him to participate in an athletics competition in Millrose. On the competition day, everyone watched the live broadcast at the Jiangtian noodle shop. When they saw Yu Cheng effortlessly jump over a height of 2.26 meters, everyone immediately cheered and congratulated him. This success couldn't have happened without Yu Cheng's full effort, as well as Xiumin's strict training. Yu Cheng thought for a long time. Since the national team made the announcement, Li Qiu sincerely apologized. Yu Cheng decided to return to China to participate in the World Championships. Xiumin supported his decision, because an athlete's greatest pride was bringing glory to their country. However, Yu Cheng kept his return a secret from Lana, because he wanted to give her a big surprise. Yu Cheng's roommate also generously helped him hide it from Lana, and secretly planned a big surprise for her at school. But Yu Cheng couldn't lie well. On the way back to school, Lana thought that he was hiding something from her. She got angry and forced Yu Cheng to stop the car and tell her the truth before he could continue. In a panic, he had to take out a ring and honestly tell her that he was proposing to her today. Lana was completely surprised and speechless. She asked him to take her back to school to see what surprise he had prepared. In front of Wang Qilin and others, Yu Cheng officially proposed to Lana. He looked at his girlfriend. Yu Cheng's hand holding the ring was slightly trembling, but he managed to say the words from the bottom of his heart, and Lana said yes without any hesitation. The path the two of them walked wasn't very bumpy, but it wasn't easy either. Maybe they were sincere to each other and loved each other deeply, making their love very precious and worth cherishing. As a coach, Lana had put all her trust in him, and Yu Cheng did not disappoint Lana, becoming her pride. The film ends here. I wish everyone a happy movie night, and don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel to watch more good movies as soon as possible.